we introduce you to one of those heroes whose war service is the stuff of legends, with books and movies, but not nearly enough to tell all the story.
In wartime history, the Filthy 13 emerged as a legendary unit within the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. While war often molds ordinary men into heroes, some choose a path less trodden, embracing chaos and rebellion as their creed. Among the ranks of the United States military in World War II, this elite team stands apart, not only for their battlefield prowess, but also for their unruly demeanor and renegade spirit. This is the untold saga of the Filthy 13, the clandestine warriors the U.S. hesitated to unleash upon the battlefield. How do you think the reputation of the Filthy 13 influenced their effectiveness in combat? Do you believe the Filthy 13 rebellious nature was a hindrance or a benefit to their missions? Join us as we look at the secret soldiers the U.S. was afraid to send to war. Early life, the rise of a leader. James Elbert Jake McNeice, a name carved in military history, was more than simply a soldier. He was a maverick whose tenacious spirit and unusual ways left an indelible stamp on World War II. Born into poor origins on May 24, 1919, in Maysville, Oklahoma, McNeice's background instilled in him a spirit of tenacity and drive. With Irish-American and Choctaw heritage, he possessed a unique combination of cultures that would eventually form his identity as a soldier. Despite the struggles of the Great Depression, McNeice's family migrated to Ponca City, Oklahoma, in 1931, where he graduated from high school in 1939. In high school, he joined the football team and was the fireman. He was known to be a defiant teen who would win at all costs. His journey into maturity brought him down different avenues, from working in road construction to earning experience in explosives at the Pine Bluff Arsenal, a skill set that would prove important in his future undertakings. Enlisting in the military on September 1, 1942, McNeice discovered his calling in the demolition saboteur unit of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, subsequently known as the Filthy 13. Under the guidance of Lieutenant Charles Mellon, McNeice refined his talents and embraced the culture of his unit with unrelenting commitment. Following Mellon's sad loss during the invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944, McNeice became leader of the Filthy 13, leading his men with a combination of boldness and cunning that distinguished them from traditional forces. Despite his willful disobedience of authority and reluctance to comply throughout training, McNeice's inherent leadership abilities gained him the respect and confidence of his fellow troops. Throughout the conflict, McNeice's courageous attitude carried him into the midst of the action, with a total of 4 combat jumps that displayed his exceptional bravery and tenacity. From the beaches of Normandy to the alleys of Bastogne, he confronted the crucible of war head-on, acting as a light of fortitude and inspiration for those around him. McNeice's commitment to going above and beyond the call of duty was illustrated by his choice to volunteer for Pathfinder training, a task he assumed would keep him out of harm's way. Yet, when duty came, he replied without hesitation, leading resupply drops into the beleaguered town of Bastogne, a monument to his selflessness and loyalty to his compatriots. As the war concluded, McNeice's leadership skills were acknowledged, resulting in his assignment as acting First Sergeant for Headquarters Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. However, his stint in the military was not without controversy, as a last incident with military police led to his expulsion in February 1946. A sad finish to a remarkable career. Though his time in the military may have been cut short, McNeice's reputation as a fierce warrior and unorthodox leader goes on, encouraging generations to embrace their individualism and never back down in the face of hardship. How did his ruthless, nonchalant, and rebellious act do him any good? Let's find out. Military career, from brawl to battlefield. A story of rebellion and unexpected bravery, McNeice's entry into the military was an inspiring one. Despite his initial reluctance, as he was not forced to join because he was working with the fire department at that time, he eventually enlisted in the military to escape serving time in prison after getting into a fight. After the head of his unit, the Filthy 13, died, he was sent to the demolition saboteur branch of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. The usefulness of McNeice in battle was acknowledged by his superiors, who relied on him for leadership regularly despite his stagnating rank of private, despite his tendency for disobedience. Warpaint and The Filthy 13 are just two of the many novels that detail his daring escapades while he was on the run. From the mayhem of Normandy to the cold battlefields of Bastogne, McNeice underwent 4 combat jumps during his military duty. Despite the seeming passing of the war, his readiness to volunteer for perilous tasks like Pathfinder training demonstrated his unwavering commitment to the cause. Expulsion from the military after a last confrontation with MPs in February 1946 was the consequence of McNeice's erratic behavior nevertheless. In spite of this, he was remembered as an innate leader and courageous fighter, demonstrating how the human spirit can be complex, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. A legendary leader. James Elbert Jake McNeice, a name associated with daring and heroism, made an indelible stamp on the pages of military history. Beyond his combat heroics, McNeice's influence reached far and wide, gaining him acclaim and awards that recognized his outstanding efforts. Inducted into the distinguished Oklahoma Military Hall of Fame, McNeice stood among the best fighters of his age, praised for his selfless devotion and steadfast commitment to duty. As an honorary colonel of the 95th Victory Division, he personified the spirit of leadership and excellence, inspiring generations to follow. McNeice's devotion to military education and training was further shown by his acquisition of an honorary master's degree in military science from Cumberland University in Lebanon, Tennessee. His involvement in military exercises there in 1943 established his image as a seasoned and capable soldier. In a monument to his long fame, McNeice was memorialized in 2010 with the introduction of an action figure, a fitting homage to his larger-than-life demeanor and epic exploits. In 2017, he was honored in the Ponca City High School Hall of Fame, a proud son of Oklahoma hailed for his astounding accomplishments on the battlefield and beyond. The birth of the Dirty Five. In the realm where trouble found its home, McNeice was never a solitary figure. Drawn to his wild antics like moths to flame, he amassed a following of admirers who reveled in his fearless spirit. Together, they formed a band of brothers whose camaraderie transcended the despicable conditions of their base, paying little heed to appearances. Their reputation for unwavering dedication to their missions was matched only by their penchant for innovation and unconventional lifestyles. This elite force forged their own path, embracing methods and choices that set them apart from the rest, earning them a place in history as legendary figures of daring and defiance. Stationed in Nissen huts in the English countryside, the Filthy 13 adopted a lifestyle that violated the rules of military discipline. Refusing to wash throughout the week, they saved water for more vital duties, such as preparing animals poached from adjacent estates. This inventiveness and contempt for traditional comforts spoke eloquently about their devotion to their cause. But it was their unusual look that caught the public's interest. Donning Native American-style mohawks and decorating each other with battle paint, the troops of the Filthy 13 portrayed an image of ferocious independence and togetherness. These outward demonstrations of individuality not only generated a feeling of solidarity inside the unit, but also served as a striking signal of their rebellion against the limits of convention. Despite their unusual lifestyle, the Filthy 13 remained laser-focused on their core objective, carrying out specific operations behind enemy lines with unmatched accuracy. Their persistent devotion to their goal and their readiness to accept unorthodox techniques attracted them to the public, who avidly followed their adventures with intrigue and affection. The birth of the legendary paratroopers, killer agents of the air. Paratroopers are courageous fighters who use parachutes to descend from aircraft to the conflict zone. Among the 3 strategic approaches for infiltrating enemy territory, theirs is the most bold. Their airborne technique offers them a tactical advantage, enabling them to hit targets inaccessible by traditional methods. The benefit of air attack comes in its capacity to infiltrate enemy defenses from unexpected angles, bypassing reinforced positions that would normally impede conventional ground troops. By dividing defenders and pushing them to defend several fronts, paratroopers cause mayhem behind enemy lines. McNeese was a paradox within the elite paratrooper team, his unconventional nature raising questions about his worthiness of the prestigious paratrooper wings. Yet beneath his rule-breaking facade lay a soldier of unparalleled skill and bravery. Assigned to the renowned 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 1st Airborne Division, his encounters with figures like Hitler only heightened the enigma that was McNeese, earning both admiration and animosity in equal measure. The birth of the Filthy 13. Just hours before the deadly plunge into the thick of combat on D-Day, the Filthy 13 found themselves ready for action, their spirits as stubborn as their determination. In a brilliant exhibition of deceit, 3 of the Filthies assumed the uniforms of opposing force commanders during pre-deployment training, entering the enemy's inner sanctum to acquire important information. Their brave maneuver, a tribute to their resourcefulness and creativity, set the scene for the turmoil to follow. But it was their commander, Jake McNeese, who typified the bold attitude of the Filthy 13. A guy of Irish and Native American origin, McNeese's wild antics and disrespect for authority were famous among his companions. When the rest were training and preparing for war, McNeese and his 12 other friends were in a drunken contest and showed up the next morning so drunk and wasted. They were valued members of the team, and not much disciplinary action was taken against them. Yet, among the mayhem, there was a method to McNeese's madness. Charging initiation fees to new squad members and participating in bare-knuckle brawls with MPs, he established a culture of solidarity and resistance that linked the 13 together as brothers in arms. In the darkness of night, McNeese's courage reached new heights when he overcame an MP in hand-to-hand fighting, using the officer's sidearm to blast out streetlights, a strong demonstration of their resolve to take on the enemy by whatever means necessary. As the hours ticked away and the tension rose, the Filthy 13 stood ready to unleash their anger onto the battlefield, their leader's uncompromising spirit leading them through the tempest of war. For in the face of hardship, it was men like McNeese who personified the genuine spirit of bravery and perseverance, blazing the path for others who dared to follow in their footsteps. The Normandy Jump. As the turmoil of battle erupted over the plains of Normandy, the Filthy 13 plummeted from the sky with the 3rd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, carried by the planes of the 440th Troop Carrier Group. Their objective: secure or dismantle the critical bridges bridging the Duvet River. Despite the horrible circumstances of their leap, when half of their teammates died to enemy fire or were captured, McNeese and the surviving men continued onward, undaunted. With tenacity and commitment, they achieved their goal despite the turmoil of war. Tragically, the loss of important leadership within the 3rd Battalion led to a breakdown in communication. Without touch with the unit, higher officials anticipated the worst and authorized attacks on the bridges, uninformed of the Filthy 13's success in protecting them. But the Filthy 13's heroism had no boundaries. In addition to their main aim, they played a vital part in the seizure of Carentan, further confirming their image as daring warriors in the furnace of battle. Though their acts may have gone undetected among the fog of battle, the memory of the Filthy 13 lives on as a monument to the tenacious spirit of those who dare to confront the hazards of war with unshakable bravery. Jack Womer. In the chronicles of military history, among the turmoil and camaraderie of warfare, there stood 2 men whose paths varied in virtually every respect, but whose relationship would become legendary. Jack Womer, the non-drinking ranger, and Jake McNeese, the courageous commander of the Filthy 13, were the opposite of each other. But together, they developed a friendship that transcended the battlefield. Womer's adventure started with a truncated 10-day airborne school when he exceeded expectations by completing 4 of his 5 obligatory jumps in a single day. His persistence and drive drew the attention of McNeese, who recognized in Womer a kindred spirit, a hard charger capable of joining his elite demolition team. Together, McNeice and Womer proceeded on a series of terrifying missions, from the beaches of Normandy to the streets of Bastogne, their fortitude and companionship unwavering in the face of hardship. Side by side, they leaped into the heart of enemy territory, their destinies entwined in a dance of death and resistance. Their squad, the Filthy 13, would become the stuff of legend, spawning the book and movie film The Dirty Dozen. But behind the Hollywood glitter, it was the friendship between McNeice and Womer that defined their legacy. A bond formed in the crucible of battle and honed by the flames of warfare. As the years passed and memories of battle faded, McNeice and Womer remained faithful in their dedication to preserve the history of the Filthy 13. In their autobiographies, The Filthy 13, From the Dust Bowl to Hitler's Eagle Nest, the 101st Airborne's most legendary squad of combat paratroopers, and Fighting with the Filthy 13, they chronicled their experiences with unflinching honesty and raw emotion, ensuring that future generations would know the true story behind the legend. Despite their disagreements, McNeice and Womer were bonded by a common sense of duty and a deep-seated commitment to their colleagues. As the two longest-lived members of the Filthy 13, they stood as living testaments to the heroism and sacrifice of those who fought with them. In the end, it was not their differences that distinguished McNeice and Womer, but rather the link they shared, the tie of brotherhood formed in the furnace of conflict and immortalized in the annals of history. And while their paths may have varied, their legacy continues, a tribute to the eternal spirit of friendship and bravery that characterizes the genuine essence of heroism. Operation Market Garden, against all odd. In the annals of World War II, Operation Market Garden stands as a testimony to the daring and sacrifice of Allied soldiers. From September 17 to 25, 1944, the skies above the German-occupied Netherlands teemed with thousands of paratroopers embarking on the greatest airborne operation of the war. Their mission, to carve out an invasion path, running from the Belgian border to Nijmegen, Holland, via Eindhoven, providing a key corridor for Allied mobility. Market Garden, popularly labeled a bridge too far, would become linked with both heroism and loss. The operation proceeded in two prongs. Market, the airborne assault conducted by British and American paratroopers, and Garden, the ground battle largely commanded by British soldiers. Though lauded as a magnificent plan, the operation quickly faced tremendous German opposition, resulting to its final classification as the Allies' most critical failure of the war. Yet, despite the turmoil and struggle, the Filthy 13 emerged as unsung heroes, their valorous actions offering a ray of hope among the gloom of loss. Despite the lack of official leadership, McNeice and his demolition crew went on, operating with relentless resolve and resourcefulness. Their aim was clear: capture crucial canals and bridges, conquering the important city of Eindhoven. And despite all odds, they performed this massive work in a little 36 hours, considerably exceeding the intended time frame of 6 days. Though Operation Market Garden would eventually fall short of its high aims, the tenacious spirit and courageous efforts of men like McNeice and the Filthy 13 serve as a heartbreaking reminder of the valor and sacrifice that distinguished the Allied cause in the furnace of war. Parachute Pathfinding Service. In December 1944, McNeice faced a terrifying proposition: volunteering for parachute pathfinding duty, a function talked about in hushed tones as a near-suicidal activity. Pathfinders, organized in teams of 10, prepared for massive casualties, with an assumption of an 80% mortality rate on each operation. Yet, in the shadow of this gloomy reality, McNeice's leadership shed a light of optimism. His impact on his buddies was apparent. When McNeice heeded the call, his commitment motivated others to follow suit, a monument to the trust and respect he commanded among his fellow troops. Transferred to the 9th Troop Carrier Command Pathfinders at Chagrove, England, McNeice's notoriety preceded him. Reporting to Company Commander Captain Frank Brown, McNeice's combat experience since Normandy and his 2 prior jumps established him as an obvious contender for leadership. With unflinching trust, Brown selected McNeice as acting first sergeant, recognizing his abilities to teach and prepare the crew for the risky tasks that lay ahead. In the crucible of battle, among uncertainty and peril, McNeese's strong leadership and indomitable spirit acted as a guiding light for those who followed him into the unknown. The Pathfinder Mission. On December 23, 1944, Lieutenant Schrabel Williams delivered urgent orders to McNeese, setting the stage for a daring mission. With the 101st Airborne Division besieged in Bastogne, cut off from vital supplies, Williams emphasized the gravity of the situation. "That's Bastogne. Your division is cut off and completely surrounded. At least they were the last time we heard from them. We haven't heard from them in 2 days. Whether they're still there or not, I don't know. All indications are they still are. You're going to jump in there on a resupply mission. They are out of ammunition, medicine, and food. They have nothing left but a handful of men. We have to maintain and control Bastogne to prevent the blitzkrieg from succeeding." In accordance with the Department of the Army's principle of effective mission command, Captain Frank Brown entrusted McNeese with leadership based on his demonstrated tactical and technical competence. Tactically and technically competent commanders, subordinates, and teams are the basis of effective mission command. McNeese's prowess was evident from his swift actions since landing in Normandy, culminating in the formation of highly trained and efficient Pathfinder teams within a mere 10 days of arrival in Chalgrove, England. His meticulous selection process ensured that each member of his Pathfinder team was chosen for their competence and proven effectiveness in combat. The sham story of the century. As the key moment of Operation Overlord loomed on the horizon, the 101st Airborne Division prepared to display its power to the highest levels of command. Among them stood Jack Womer, a paratrooper whose disregard for conventional military conventions was equaled only by his resourcefulness and boldness. Tasked with completing a demonstration jump for the prestigious triumvirate of General Taylor, Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Womer saw a chance to infuse a dose of irreverence into the proceedings. With a fellow cohort at his side, he started on a bold scheme that would leave an unforgettable impression on history. As they fell from the heavens above, Womer and his companion made a split-second choice to break from the script. Disguising their parachutes in the mayhem of the drop, they silently made their way to a massive haystack near the middle of the drop zone, concealing themselves from view. Hours passed in anxious suspense as they lay concealed, the weight of their illicit deed hanging heavily in the air. Then, as if beckoned by destiny, a vehicle drew up near the haystack, and out walked none other than Winston Churchill himself, accompanied by General Taylor and Eisenhower. In a weird twist of destiny, Churchill, ignorant of their presence, continued to empty himself with a steady stream through the heaped hay, his aim accidentally reaching its target on Womer's invisible boots. The spectacle proceeded in quiet, the solemnity of the situation blending with a feeling of ridiculousness that bordered on the strange. With a careless zip of his trousers, Churchill returned to the automobile, ignorant of the unorthodox audience that bore witness to his unplanned act of nature. As the car vanished into the distance, Womer and his friend emerged from their hiding position, their laughter resounding over the empty drop zone. For Womer and his team, it was a reminder that even in the middle of the biggest struggle the world had ever experienced, there was always room for a bit of comedy and compassion. Capture and chaos. Robert Cohn, a Jewish member of the Filthy 13, found himself thrown into a desperate battle for survival. Separated from his friends and injured by a bullet, Cohn's instincts for survival kicked in. With tenacity and resolve, he retreated out of sight from the enemy, losing his dog tags and burying them in the soft soil to elude discovery. Finding sanctuary in a lonely barn, Cohn stayed concealed for 2 torturous days, his destiny hanging in the balance as he waited for the tempest of battle to pass. Yet his refuge was short-lived, as the family who owned the property eventually betrayed him to the Nazis, resulting in his arrest and incarceration in a cruel prison camp. For 9 painful months, Cohn braved the horrors of imprisonment, his spirit steadfast despite the terrible sufferings he encountered. Liberation eventually came at the hands of the Russians, and Cone lost no time in joining forces with his rescuers, fighting with them for a week before going on a treacherous trek into Poland, Romania, and Russia. Armed with nothing but their wits and stolen Polish money, Cone and his group navigated hazardous terrain, navigating through hostile territory and escaping arrest at every step. Their voyage ultimately got them to Russia, where they were temporarily arrested for missing identity before being freed and eventually boarding a British ship destined for Egypt. Yet, even in the middle of their trek to freedom, suffering continued to hound their every step. Wrongfully detained during a mutiny farce in Egypt, Cone and his friend experienced yet another nightmare before ultimately being allowed passage to the United States, where they might finally find reprieve from the horrors of war. Meanwhile, Jake McNeese and his fellow Filthy 13 members pressed on amid the turmoil of D-Day, teaming up with units from the 501st and 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiments. Pushing ahead with tenacity, they grabbed critical bridges and made daring raids on enemy strongholds, notably the town of Carentan. In the heat of combat, McNeese's famed talent with his weapon came to the fore, as he swung his M1 rifle with the elegance of a baseball great, finishing the struggle for a Nazi soldier with a devastating strike. With their aim completed, the Filthy 13 indulged in a well-deserved reward, raiding safes for money and relishing in the fruits of victory, including excessive quantities of alcohol, a fitting finish to their heroic adventures in the furnace of battle. Literature and cultural influence. In the annals of wartime lore, the legend of the Filthy 13 was born not on the battlefield, but in the ink-stained pages of press releases and embellished articles penned by war correspondents. Tom Hogue, in a June 9, 1944 article for Stars and Stripes, first coined the name the Filthy 13, declaring them a squad rivaled by none in the leaping party. Arch Whitehouse, in an article for True magazine, perpetuated the myths surrounding the unit, describing them as the Dirty Dozen, a group of paratroopers renowned for their orneriness and mean spirit. Whitehouse went as far as to claim that the original 12 members were full-blooded Indians who swore not to bathe until they jumped into combat, requiring their new lieutenant to beat each one in a fight to earn their respect. These embellished tales would later find their way into E.M. Nathanson's novel The Dirty Dozen, published in 1965 and subsequently adapted into a blockbuster film in 1967. Despite Nathanson's assertion that the story was inspired by a unit of condemned prisoners on a suicide mission, Barbara Maloney, daughter of John Agnew, a member of the Filthy 13, revealed that her father believed only 30% of the movie's content was historically accurate. While the Filthy 13 were not convicts like their fictional counterparts, they were certainly no strangers to controversy, with a penchant for drinking, fighting, and frequent stays in the stockade. Thus, the truth of their exploits, while less sensationalized than the myths perpetuated by Hollywood, remains a testament to their audacity and courage in the face of adversity. The memory of the Filthy 13 continues via several written narratives and artistic tributes, each shedding light on the unit's amazing tale. Richard E. Kilblain recounted Jake McNeese's account in The Filthy 13 in 2003, while Stephen DeVito presented Jack Womer's viewpoint in Fighting with the Filthy 13, the World War II story of Jack Womer Ranger and Paratrooper, 2012. Kilblain further went into the unit's history in Warpaint, The Filthy 13, Jump into Normandy in 2013, collating the stories of virtually all surviving soldiers for a more authentic picture. Jerome Preisler took an in-depth look at the Bastogne leap in First to Jump, how the band of brothers was aided by the brave paratroopers of the Pathfinder Company in the year 2014. The effect of the Filthy 13 goes beyond the written word, with translations of their narrative into French, Swedish, and Spanish. Additionally, Konstantin Ensar created a documentary, The Filthy 13, Real Stories Behind the Lines, containing interviews with Jake McNeese and Richard Kilblain. Visual tributes abound, with a commissioned painting by Joel Iskowitz gracing the cover of Warpaint, showing the troops preparing for their deadly leap into Normandy. Memorials, including a bronze bust of Jake McNeese at the Stevens County Currahee Military Museum in Georgia, and a bronze memorial honoring the Filthy 13 D-Day mission in Brevance, France, serve as permanent testaments to their valor. Their narrative has even been immortalized on the silver screen, with Andrew Jones's low-budget film D-Day Assassins, released in 2019, exposing their adventures to a new generation of spectators. Through these diverse media, the memory of the Filthy 13 continues to inspire and engage audiences, guaranteeing that their heroism and sacrifice will never be forgotten. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more fascinating stories and facts, be sure to subscribe to our channels. See you in the next video.